Welcome, listeners, to the CDC podcast. My name is Laura Vincent. I'm a health advocate in the Dallas-Fort Worth area here in Texas. I'm a spokesman for battleofthebones.org, and I like to express my appreciation to the CDC for supporting our coalition, battleofthebones.org. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is a federal agency that supports health promotion, prevention, and preparedness activities with the goal of improving overall public health. Today, I'm going to talk about the growing concern of osteoporosis among perimenopausal and postmenopausal women ages 50 and over. Osteoporosis means porous bone. Osteoporosis is a disease characterized by low bone mass and structural deterioration of bone tissue, commonly of the hip, spine, and wrist. As bones become more porous and fragile with age, the risk of fracture is greatly increased. The loss of bone occurs silently and progressively. Due to our ever-increasing aging population, about 50% of women over age 50 will suffer during their lifetime from an osteoporotic fracture, which is associated with an increased mortality risk. Bone mineral density is the primary test used to identify low bone mass. One of the most accurate ways to measure BMD, the bone mineral density, is through a DEXA scan, which uses a low-energy X-ray to evaluate bone density in the hip or spine. Our topic today starts with May 12th. It was a warm day in Dallas, Texas. A 66-year-old Caucasian woman named Barbara was enjoying a barbecue in her backyard with her family. Her adult children were visiting her and celebrating Mother's Day. When it was time for dessert, Barbara took it upon herself to slice the watermelon. She lifted the large melon from the fridge to move it onto the kitchen counter. She was surprised when it accidentally slipped out of her hands and fell hard on her left thigh. Then it tumbled to the floor and cracked in 3 sections. As her thigh pain became unbearable, Barbara was unable to walk on her injured leg. She went to the emergency room, and an X-ray revealed a femoral shaft fracture. An IV was started to receive pain medication. The fracture was open, so she received antibiotics to prevent bone infection. She was also given a tetanus vaccination. Later, she underwent surgery where a metal rod was put down the center of her femur bone. A full recovery normally takes about 3 to 12 months, but Barbara's specialist discovered she had osteoporosis, so her recuperation would be a longer one. In another case, Phyllis, a petite, underweight Caucasian woman, age 69, she was invited to her granddaughter's band performance at a local middle school. Phyllis was tired that evening and preferred to stay home, but she sacrificed and went to the concert, as she wanted to support her granddaughter. Phyllis was grateful when it ended, as she yearned to return to her cozy home. While exiting the school's doorway, she noticed it was congested with many others also hoping to reach the parking lot soon. Just then a tall, morbidly obese man exiting next to her accidentally lost his balance and fell on Phyllis, knocking her flat on her back. She felt as though her entire body had been crushed. The man needed help from bystanders to pick himself back up, and by then Phyllis was unable to breathe normally and could hardly speak. She was taken to the hospital in an ambulance. She ended up with several broken ribs, a ruptured lung, and a broken hip. Her recuperation was longer than expected due to osteoporosis. Phyllis's funeral took place 11 months later. Fractures carry a high mortality risk. A 2017 study that followed over 122,000 people in the United States and Europe found the increase in mortality was greatest in the first year after a bone fracture. We tend to think of a fractured bone as no big deal, but in the elderly, slipping, falling, or dropping a heavy object on the body is cause for great concern. As a call to action, truly an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Barbara could have asked a family member for help carrying the watermelon for her, but the thought didn't cross her mind as she was accustomed to carrying heavy things all of her life. In Phyllis's case, she could have left the school building 10 minutes prior to the concert ending, or waited until the crowds died down to avoid getting knocked over. Like Barbara, Phyllis was unaware she had osteoporosis until her accidental collision. Experts suggest preventing the development of porous bones by increasing focus on muscle strength. This gradually increases bone quality and density. This can be accomplished by adopting weight-bearing exercises such as lifting low weights, resistant bands, and walking. In one study, despite lower levels of activity, blacks, and Hispanics were not more likely to have osteoporosis. Fall prevention is another important strategy in preventing bone fractures. Avoid using floor rugs or mats as they risk slipping, as well as installing less slippery floorings. These are both good fall preventative measures. Other effective ways to prevent osteoporosis will be discussed in more detail in subsequent podcasts on this topic. I'd like to express my gratitude to you for taking the time to listen to our podcast on osteoporosis prevention. There are some resources that I'd like to mention. One is by Dr. Strubel, Philip, MD. Mortality after distal femur fracture in elderly patients, and it was retrieved from www.ncbi.nlm.nih.gov/PMC/articles/PMC3048257. We have a list of other resources that we can share with you that we will post. Thank you very much.